Welcome to News at 10. We're live from the News Hub at Adisawe, Kanda and Accra, and we're broadcasting also on 3FM 92.7. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll bring you a wrap of the day's major news highlights. We're streaming live on our Facebook page and on 3news.com. I'm Stephen Enti. Let's start with the major news summaries of the day. The Parliamentary Health Committee says it has started investigations into the no-bed syndrome at the 7 hospitals that were alleged to have refused a 70-year-old man medical attention, which consequently resulted in his death. The chairman of the committee, Dr. Kwabena Chumniama, said the hospitals have been given a week to present their side of the story for onward investigations. And prison officials say there have been a 17% decline in the number of remand prisoners over the past 11 years. Acting Chief Legal Officer of the Ghana Prison Service, Amos Kwabena Entry, disclosed this at a news conference in Accra. And road crashes have claimed 174 lives in the Ashanti region between January and May this year. The figure is a 39% increase on fatalities recorded in the region within the same period last year. And the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, has called on the National Teaching Council to immediately suspend the implementation of the teacher licensing or risk creating industrial unrest. National President Angel Kabonu asked the National Teaching Council to undertake negotiations and consultations of the teacher licensing before implementation. Those were our major news highlights. Remember, we're streaming live on Facebook and on 3news.com. You can also hear us on 3FM 92.7. Let's start with our very first story. The Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative is advocating decriminalization of petty offences. In a research conducted by the civil society organization, 70% of respondents said offences such as prostitution, petty stealing and unlawful entry should be decriminalized. Here's a report by Godfrey Tanner.
Respondents had different opinions on which crime were to be decriminalized and why. A number of respondents were of the opinion that some of the offences in the Criminal Offences Act should be decriminalized. 30 crime suspects drawn from police stations in Accra were interviewed, of which 70% indicated that petty offences should be decriminalized. The offences include unlawful assembly, prostitution, insulting the national flag, being within some premises for unlawful purpose and loitering. Lecturer at the Gimpa Law School, Edmund Foley, explained what the research seeks to achieve.
We hope that perhaps the Attorney General's office would kickstart the process of amending the Criminal Offences Act. That was the major one. Others, like the Domestic Violence Act and the Children's Act, would come later. I know for a fact, because I work on children's issues, that there is a move to amend the Children's Act.
Head of Africa Office of the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, Mina Mentor, said her outfit will continue to advocate the reformation in the country's criminal code.
It is for us to ensure that we pass the information onto the right people, and that is why there was this launch. If you realize, the various institutions apart from Parliament were here and copies of the reports were given to them. We will send copies of the report to Parliament as well.
Council of State member Sam Okujeto noted decriminalizing petty offences would reduce crime.
When you decriminalize petty offences, your crime rate actually goes down. Nobody is saying that don't punish them. You can always put society, you can also put things in place that can punish them.
The recommendations therefore made were for nuisance offences to be decriminalized and be made statutory offences which could be handled by local government institutions.
All right, let's get on to the telephone lines now. We have the head of the Africa Office of the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, Mina Mentor, joining us now. Good evening, ma'am, and thank you extremely for your time. So before we go into the details of the report, let's find out the effect of the petty offences on the criminal justice system.
And thank you very much, Stephen. Good evening to you and good evening to your viewers. Well, you see, it's such that if there is a petty offense, let's say that somebody steals a tube of yam, and the person is arrested, the person is detained, the person is tried. Stealing is stealing as per our law. The person is given 2 years. You look at the price of a tube of yam, and you look at the process, the cost involved to the person, and then the cost involved to the state. I guess it helps to choke the prisons up. And so if for certain offenses we could decriminalize them or declassify them, it helps to decongest the system.
I know that there have been discussions on, enabling offenders to serve non-custodial sentences and all of that, but considering that our non-custodian regime in Ghana here is not as robust or reliable as in other developed economies, do you get the impression that decriminalizing is the only way out, or you would suggest a combination of that and also enhancing the non-custodial regime in our country?
I think that it's an entire process. We could look at, because we are not saying that declassifying and criminalizing it's the only way. We are saying that it helps to improve the system. And I think that, yes, our systems are not as robust as they ought to be, but we need to start from somewhere. Because you see, even for the non-custodial sentences, whoever they are, they live in communities. And if we are able to get people to monitor them. For example, if somebody commits a crime and it's a bailable offense, people are granted bail and they go through the process. And so we could use the same thing for the non-custodial one, but for the non-custodial ones. But for certain offenses, I guess we could decriminalize them. One of such offenses is verbal assault. People quarrel, make a whole lot of noise, and they are arrested. And it's an offense that you could be jailed for. It's just a verbal thing. What is the actual harm?
I can imagine that.
Exactly.
Now, let's look at the research itself, the research your group conducted. Can you tell us really the main reason behind that research and what the findings you got mean in shaping the justice system?
Okay, thank you. The research is actually based on some recommendations that the African Union made a while ago to encourage penal reforms in African countries. And that was done some time ago in Ouagadougou. It is normally called the Ouagadougou Accord or the Ouagadougou Guideline. In that document, the African Union recommended that states decriminalize and declassify certain offenses to decongest their prisons and police stations. Unfortunately, over 10 years down the line, many African countries, if not all, have not done anything about it. So recently, the African Commission on Human and People's Rights decided to promote some guidelines to help African countries reform their laws to take into consideration the recommendations made in the Ouagadougou Accord. And based on that, we had some funding from the Open Society Initiative for West Africa to conduct advocacy to promote the decriminalization of petty offenses in Ghana. And we thought that before we could do any serious advocacy, it should be evidence-based. So we commissioned a research into the laws that we have in Ghana to find out which of the offenses that we could encourage decriminalizing, because the report is decriminalizing and declassifying petty offenses Yet, in Ghanaian law, in our law books, we do not have any such classification as petty offenses. What we have is misdemeanors. And you cannot say that all misdemeanors are petty offenses. For example, corruption is a misdemeanor, but it's definitely not a petty offense. So the research seeks to look at what our laws say, look at the offenses that we have in our law books. We spoke to a number of people. We spoke to lawyers, we spoke to judges, we spoke to law enforcement agencies, the police, the prisons, we spoke to prosecutors, we spoke to a wide range of people, civil society organizations, and their views together, in addition to a lot of background and depth research. And some of the key recommendations that were made by stakeholders, one of the key recommendations is for the nuisance offenses in our laws should be decriminalized. One of them too was that law enforcement agencies should be trained on international protocols. Right. Because if they are trained on international protocols and even the law does not exist, but there are protocols, you at least will go and look at those human rights principles and apply it in practice to what you do. Another recommendation was that we should encourage the MMDAs, because some of the MMDAs have bylaws that tend to criminalize some of these offenses.
Right.
So we should encourage them to also work on decriminalizing some of
Madam.
So some of the few recommendations that I...
Right, Madam Mina Mentor, thank you very much. We're grateful that you made time to speak with us. This is News at 10. We're broadcasting live from the News Hub at Adisawe Kanda. You can also hear us on your radio, 92.7. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, the Minister of Health, Kweku Menu, says a committee has been set up to investigate the death of the 70-year-old man who was refused medical care at 7 hospitals in Accra. He also gave reasons why some health facilities are yet to be opened to the public.
The Minister of Health, Kweku Menu, indicated all health facilities have been instructed to stop refusing patients.
I've requested a Director General to write to all health facilities to stop that thing immediately.
Concerning the death of the 70-year-old man, he explained that the Ministry of Health will come out with a comprehensive report.
We have set up a committee that is going around, looking at information, doing investigations for us to see what actually happened and what things that we shouldn't have done happened, and let us identify those who did that. I've sent a good group from the ministry to go to the bereaved family, and they've given us a chronology of what that happened that night to the man.
On completed but non-functional health facilities, the Minister of Health admitted the delay could be attributed to the lack of interagency and interministerial collaboration.
They were done as a component of the roles that they were doing. When they finished, nobody knows what happened. They were left there for 8 good years, nobody asked any question. This was brought to a notice just about last 2 or 3 weeks. So Ministry of Roads or whoever put up the facilities never even informed the ministry, or how do I call it, Ghana Health Service. And that is why interagency or ministerial collaboration is always very, very necessary.
Kweku Menu said the matter is being looked into.
And from our engagement with the Ministry of Roads, I think the contractor even didn't hand over those facilities to the Ministry of Roads as well. We need equipment, we need to do some refurbishment to the buildings, we need to staff the place. For now, we've identified about 7 of them, such facilities.
Meanwhile, the Ghana Medical Association has challenged government to improve emergency care as a way of solving the no-bed syndrome. A statement in response to the directive saying no government health institution should turn away patients over no-bed excuse, the Ghana Medical Association says the problem facing medical institutions is both largely systemic and, in some cases, attributable to individual factors. The association is calling on the Ministry of Health to implement the Accident Emergency Service Guidelines of 2011. The statement further said, while frontline workers may be culpable in some situations, a lot of the problems that bedevil emergency room care and services are systematic. The Ghana Medical Association says it would prefer the joint committee set up to investigate this matter will unravel the circumstance that resulted in the death of the 70-year-old man and subsequently identify and recommend instituting specific measures to improve emergency care.
And the Parliamentary Health Committee says it has started investigations into the no-bed syndrome at the 7 hospitals that were alleged to have refused a 70-year-old man medical attention, which consequently resulted in his death. The chairman of the committee, Dr. Kwabena Chum, says the hospitals have been given a week to present their side of the story for onward investigations.
The death of 70-year-old Prince Antonio Pokwe Champong sparked public outrage. Prince Antonio Pokwe Champong, according to the family, was refused admission at 7 hospitals visited in Accra with the excuse there was no bed for him. The matter also attracted outcry from the representatives of the People Parliament. The Speaker tasked a joint committee on health and constitutional, legal and parliamentary affairs to investigate and report back to the House in 2 weeks. Chairman of the Health Committee, Dr. Kwabena Chum said their investigations have started.
They will give them a week to furnish us with the report on the instance so that we will be able to know what really happened. What we were told, I should say, were account of the patient's relatives, the son and the wife. We need to hear the side of the institutions involved, and then from there we will know which people to call within the institutions. We also speak with the relatives of our late compatriots. We are also going to, we've written to Medical and Dental Council, who regulates medical practice, to give us an account in their opinion whether the doctors involved in the issue acted in, professionally or within the confines of the law. We've also done same to Nurse and Military Council.
He hopes their recommendations will help change the no-bed excuse frequently used by hospital authorities to deny the sick medical attention.
The legal aspect, these professionals are regulated. We have the laws that regulate the practice of medicine in Ghana. Is it adequate to actually protect the citizens from, if you like, unscrupulous professionals in that area? We will look at all that so that if there is the need to even amend the existing laws to try and make it stricter, so as to serve as a check on the conduct of these professionals. I think the joint committee will look into all that.
Dr. Kwabena Chum was optimistic his team would be able to work within the 2-week grace period given them by the Speaker. If not, they will seek for more time.
And that's how we wrap up with News at 10. Thank you very much for staying with us. Russia Daily begins shortly after this with Michael Otieje and his panel reviewing and previewing the World Cup matches from today onwards. Please stay with us here on TV3. Good night.